Hi, my name is Rachel Gerber. I'm the denominational minister for youth and young adults for Mennonite Church USA, and also the editor of The Gathering Place, which is an interactive website for Anabaptist youth leaders to learn, be, and connect. And every month here on The Gathering Place, we focus on a different theme, and everything that we do hinges upon that theme. And this month we've been talking about special needs ministries and how do we create inclusive spaces, which turn out to be transformative as we learn and grow with one another. So I'm so excited today to have Kathy and Christine from the Anabaptist Disabilities Network with us today in this podcast to talk about their work with ADN, as well as what are resources that are available to the Mennonite Church regarding special needs in the congregation. So welcome, Christine, and welcome, Kathy. Thanks so much for being here at The Gathering Place.
Yeah, thank you.
You're so welcome. Well, hey, I'm just wondering if we can go ahead and jump in and get started. And Kathy, as Executive Director, do you want to tell us a little bit about the history of ADN and what resources is available?
Sure. Anabaptist Disability Network formed, in 2003, I believe. I've only been with the organization for a year, so I may forget a little something now and then, but 2003, we formed after Mennonite Mutual Aid, which is now Everence, decided that they needed to change focus and not include in their basket helping congregations and persons with disabilities. So we started then, and I'm the newest executive director, and Christine Guth, who's here with me, has been our program director for the past 10 years, and she's the expert at this point in my book.
That's great. Well, then, Christine, do you want to tell us a little bit about what resources are available at Anabaptist Disabilities Network?
Let me just add one bit of history that some people may be aware of. Prior to Everence doing the having disability advocacy, MCC, Mennonite Central Committee, had a Mennonite mental health services, and they were resourcing churches around the areas of disability inclusion. And so we have we inherited a long history of advocacy within Mennonite churches, even though our organization itself is fairly young. Our resources, we have a newsletter that goes out in hard copy 3 times a year, and we send it to every Mennonite church and 5 other denominations. We also, it goes out by email, so people who prefer to receive it that way can subscribe by email. We have an extensive website. Over the last year and a half, we have migrated our website from one platform to another, and I have been impressed again with the massiveness of the things that we have accumulated there. So when so there are a lot of articles, how-to kinds of articles, and stories. We try to collect stories from churches that are including people with disabilities, telling the stories of individuals with disabilities, ways to help us imagine how we could be involved in greater steps toward inclusion. We have some links there to audit tools that enable you to go through your congregation and check the width of doorways, as well as how are our programs meeting the needs of people with hidden disabilities. So things are grouped according to different types of disability, as well as lots of different themes. Theological resources is another thing that we try to include, because disability, the theology that is supportive and helpful to people with disabilities is not always front and center in how we practice in our churches. And so there are articles there that invite us to think differently about how God is involved in our lives as people with disabilities.
That's wonderful.
So that's kind of an intro.
That's great. That's great. Kathy, were you going to say anything?
I just wanted to add that we have a network of congregational disabilities advocates that we work with, and we support them sending information by email or paper or on various topics related to becoming more inclusive of persons with disabilities in our congregations.
That's great. So how did you get involved with this type of work, Kathy?
Well, I have been working with nonprofits for most of my working life, and a year ago I learned that AdNet, which is the name that we've gone by for the last quite a while, they were looking for a new administrator to focus on fundraising and direct work with our constituency. That's something that I have a fair amount of experience in, and I also have always had a passion for working with and helping people who have issues or disabilities of one sort or another, and so it looked like a good fit, and the more I get into it, the more it is.
That's great. Oh, that's wonderful when that synergy happens between your interest and your passion and your skills and gifts. So that's wonderful. Christine, what about you? You've been here with ADN for a long time. So
it's been a good while. I was a seminary student during the years my kids were in school, and I was taking one class at a time at Anabaptist Mennonite Biblical Seminary, and so it was kind of a 10-year plan. And as I neared the end of that and graduating, I met with my faculty advisor, just kind of exploring my sense of call, and I just began to dream of the possibility of using the experience that I had with disability in ministry in some way, and that two of my two children have been diagnosed with autism spectrum conditions as well as mental health conditions, and some of the years when things were not well controlled with their mental health were arduous at home, and so that was very formative for me, and I started to lead a local autism support group in our community, helped to found it and get it off the ground, and at the same time I began exploring ministry in the church related to disabilities, and Anabaptist Disabilities Network was in its early years. I explored with Paul Lichty, who was then the executive director, and we came up together with a proposal for kind of a volunteer position called the associate. And so I was an associate at first, and it was volunteer. Over the years, it grew and continued to grow till, there were a couple of years there when I was working 3/4 time as a volunteer. And as I did this work, I began to realize how much my interest in disability was fueled by my own personal experience of living with depression for many years, untreated for about 30 years, and now it's been well controlled with medication for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. But those years of living under that shadow have really shaped my theological perspectives, and the helped to form the passion that's kept me going on in a job that has paid money but not enough to live on. So thankfully, my husband is very supportive of this work, and so that's kind of how it got started. It started very small and grew and grew and grew, and so yeah, that's.
I'm curious. Is the ADN? Is it the first in the Mennonite Church that has sort of gathered around to create this network, or was there any other types of resources that you have, other partners with agencies?
Well, as I said, under Mennonite Central Committee, that was not directly Mennonite Church USA, but there was disability advocacy with that organization, and similarly, MMA, which is now Everence, reached out quite a bit to the Mennonite Church, even though their constituency is broader than Mennonite Church. So it was not exactly a handoff from the work that Everence was doing, but they closed their programs, and we received a lot of stuff from them. So we ended up getting a supply of booklets, sort of the rights to a book called Supportive Care in the Congregation, which we have since republished, and then we also received some funding that had been sort of in a hidden spot somewhere. I mean, after a while, we have a small endowment now, thanks to that earlier work. So yeah, it's been around. It's been around for a long time, but it's never been taken up officially by Mennonite Church USA. That has kind of its advantages and disadvantages. But we're an independent organization, and we relate to half a dozen denominations.
Great. So what kind of resources and/or hopes and dreams for congregations and groups to consider in working with individuals with special needs? Yeah, what do you hope for, or what do you have to offer specifically? For congregations who are searching.
I'll jump in, and Kathy can supplement this. There are two things that, if congregations are thinking about this, we really would encourage is for a congregation to appoint someone and bless them for disability ministry, either an individual or a small group of individuals who have a role to look out for the folks with special needs or disabilities in the congregation. And we so that's the disability advocate, congregational disability advocate, and then we would encourage those folks or others in the congregation to to use a disability audit tool, because it's we need to open our eyes, because a lot of things about disability inclusion are not visible to us unless we have sort of trained our eyes to see them. And so the audits that we've got several different tools that are possibility, sort of the entry-level audit versus audit that for people who have for congregations that want to take additional steps. But that kind of a tool can help you look and see what are the needs that we just didn't even know about, and those things can be very helpful.
That's great. Now, you mentioned a little bit before about part of the audits being like, how wide are your doors?
Yeah.
Are there other sort of can you just name, I'm sort of going off here, but can you just name a few other things that maybe we just don't even think of when, yeah, we're in our congregations?
Well, in hearing issues are often a difficult thing. Now, for youth and young adults, there's not as many, may not be as many hearing issues in congregations as there are for older adults. Some young people are quite sensitive to sound, and if a church has very loud music, that can be overwhelming. Another thing that can be a source of a challenge for congregations is if they use like a video screen for things. People like to put beautiful backgrounds behind the words of songs, and those backgrounds can be pretty challenging if you have vision impairments. So those are some things. The ramps are one area that I have been, ramps are great for getting to places. Sometimes they're not, sometimes they're too steep. Automatic door openers really help people who use a wheelchair. They actually help a lot of people because the person with the stroller, somebody carrying a heavy box, those kinds of things can be an issue. Those are a few things. I mean, those are things in terms of the physical environment. Sure. Awareness that individual, just a sensitivity, getting some training to the teachers and things, so that everyone is got some resources. Everyone is kind of alerted to this. The theological things are near and dear to my heart as well. Ways that we use biblical language and biblical interpretations that can feel like a big burden. Just one thing that comes to my mind is the text about rejoice in the Lord, always rejoice. And when you're depressed, that just feels like it doesn't feel good. And how do we use a text like that in ways that can be gracious to people who at that moment do not feel joyful?
Yeah, that's a good word, because you're so desperately wanting to feel joyful, wanting to rejoice, and it almost feels like salt in the wound.
God is chastising you for being where you're at, and that's the last thing you need.
Yeah.
So yeah, I throw that out there just to say there are these, in addition to the physical things, there's a lot of attitudinal stuff. One section of our website is called Changing Attitudes, and it has a lot of stories and things that just invite us to change our attitude. I know that one thing that some people say, we only have one person in our congregation who can use thus and so why should we put all these resources into that one person? And that when that one person is a part of our community, or if that another person is not a part of our community because we are excluding them, our community loses out. It's not just that one person, but it is we as a community who lose out on the gifts and blessings that people with disabilities have their God-given gifts that we need.
That's a great word. Yeah.
I'd like to jump in. Many times churches don't even realize that there is more than just that one person in their congregation who is dealing with disability issues. Many times disabilities can be hidden, or where the person tries to hide it. Many times it can be just something that is not very obvious, but like if you have an older person who has hearing aids, they often have issues with hearing. And if they can't hear the full sentence as the preacher is preaching, if the preacher's voice drops down in tone at the end of each sentence, that ruins it for the understanding of that person with hearing issues. So one thing that we do is we try to help congregations understand the full possible breadth of issues that they can that people in their congregations might experience. So we work with the disabilities advocates in the congregations, but we also try to provide resources to congregations to assist them and their advocates if they have those. We have a number of field associate volunteers throughout the North American Midwest, basically, who are available to come and work with a congregation on various issues and topics. Christine and I are also available to do workshops and presentations on various issues and topics related to disabilities. Last year, we published a new book called Circles of Love, and that is a short book of stories of congregations who are using support groups to help care for individuals or families within their congregation who have significant issues of one type or another. And we can walk with a congregation if they want to learn more about forming a support group of that type for a family or person in the congregation. Sometimes you have somebody in crisis continually or periodically who may take up a lot of emotional energy and time from pastoral staff. And that can be very wearing. And so in those cases especially, forming a support group, pulling in other people in the congregation who care about that person or situation to help ease the load and distribute it is a great thing to do.
Bear one another's burdens.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, the power of the community. Absolutely. Well, what are some other ways that folks can get involved or support your ministry of the Disabilities Network? Is there any way?
Well, we're always looking for contributions. We are a nonprofit organization, and we have some churches who regularly support us as part of their budgets. Many churches do not. And so individuals or church congregations are our lifeblood. So that's the quick and easy way to support us and join the mission. But if we would like it if we had disability advocates all over the place, not just ones with the official title and blessing from their congregation, but just people who care about other people in their circles, who they see, who may have an issue that they may stumble with or something.
Mm-hmm. And can you remind us again of your website, the address of it?
Sure. It is
adnetonline.org.
adnetonline.org. So
All
it's
right.
ADTNET ADNET online, ONLINE.org.
There you go. Good. And I will add a link to that when I post this podcast, so folks can go directly there and highlight some of those things that you talked about and how to join to be an advocate in their own congregation. So
you can subscribe to our newsletter there, and we've gotten really much more active with our blog here lately. And so we're sending out blog posts, so regularly you can subscribe to the blog, and it will give you periodic stories and tips and things like that that will give you some new food for thought. And
that's great.
If someone is hearing this who really wants to be involved with us at a deeper level, we would welcome people to apply for an associate, to be one of our associates. This is a volunteer position that can be as involved or limited as you wish. I started out as an associate, so it can mushroom. You can put a lot of time into it if you want to. Most of our associates put in a few hours a month, and they do some writing for us or speaking in their local areas. Sometimes we have specific needs that we call on them for. I'd like us to be able to do some webinars in a format like this too. So if you have gifts for that, we could find a place for you.
That's wonderful. Well, I can't sing your praises enough of such an extensive and thoughtful website. There's definitely you've crossed the gamut and have wonderful things there. So I was just very impressed.
We have put a lot of energy into that the last year, and it's still not perfect. We're still working on the home page to make it be a little bit more concise and point people to the right spots on the website. But yes, there's a lot of material there, and we hope that we've organized it in a way that you can find what you need. But if you can't find it, send us an email, because we can help you find things on our website, and also are aware of what a lot of other denominations are doing too.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you both so much. Do you have any final thoughts for the viewers?
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out today to talk with us about your work in ministry, and it's just a wonderful resource that you've offered the church. So I'm very grateful for that. But,
all right.
And thank you all for joining in here for the Gathering Place Live podcast. And stay tuned and continue to follow the blog posts this month at www.thegatheringplace.us. So until next time, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.